Welcome to another episode of PNE Pod, the official podcast of the one and only Preston North End Football Club. And usually our guests are former players or managers, but we've got something a little bit different for you today. We've got PNE's new Non-Executive Chairman Ian Penrose with us. First of all, Ian, how are you doing?
I'm very good, thank you. Great to see you again.
Great to see you. And I suppose the first place to start is, what is your role at Preston North End? Because you've come in this season and maybe the fans haven't quite had the opportunity to get to know you and your lifetime of supporting North End. So just tell everyone what your role is at the club and what you plan to achieve in that role.
Well, I've come in as non-exec chairman, as you said, Niall, and my role is to oversee the club as a whole, from a financial viewpoint, from an investment viewpoint, and ultimately, hopefully, from overseeing us getting in the Premier League, which is clearly our dream. And so, you know, I have regular conversations with Peter, regular conversations with Paul, the manager, chair the board meetings, one next week that's going on, and I have a regular dialogue, which is probably most days, if not several times most days, with the owners, the Hemmings family, and Craig Hemmings in particular.
Can I ask why you wanted to get involved? You've had a very successful time as a businessman around the world. Why now to get involved with North End?
There's quite a few people have asked me that question, Neil. Because I think as my wife actually summed it up really well, sometimes you've got to follow your heart. And, you know, I've followed Preston North End for my whole life. I've stood on the terraces all around the UK. I've been on every stand in Deepdale. I've shared the ups and all too often the difficulties that we've had over a lifetime of supporting Preston. And if I can do a very small part that helps our football club be successful, then I'd be absolutely delighted. So it's something that I just, when Craig rang me up and said, come on round, I want to talk to you, it was something I wanted to do.
How important do you think it is that you are a North End fan? Because we see in modern football now people from all different creeds, all different backgrounds getting involved in football clubs. And we've seen some pretty crazy decisions be made, the change of club names, club crests, club colours. Do you think it's important, the fact that you are a fan, you understand what North End is all about, and so the fans can trust that your heart is in the right place and you're the right person for the job?
I'd like to think so, because, you know, I've been, as Neil was saying, I've been in business my whole life, all around the world in some really interesting things. But, you know, I've always been a Preston fan. And I absolutely, you know, why are you a Preston fan? Because you're sort of born into it. It's sort of part of you. You know, we definitely won't be doing some crazy things about names and colours and all that sort of stuff. I'm a very traditionalist in that front. And, you know, I share the view that most of our fans do, that we all want to be successful. And we all want to one day, and hopefully in the not too distant future, get ourselves into the Premier League. And also I'd love us to have a great cup run. You know, that's something that I think until, you know, I think we got the furthest we've ever got when we played Villa last year. You know, in 50 years of following the football club, once in the quarterfinals isn't the greatest achievement, is it, we've ever had. But so I want us to be successful.
So your remit would be, I guess, to try and perhaps seek out new investment. We spoke to Peter Ridsdale on the podcast recently, and he was telling us that there have been conversations ongoing with various parties for the last 12 months or more, and people come and they talk and then they disappear, and then new parties come in and they show an interest and then they disappear. And he mentioned it was all about finding the right people to invest in the club. And you mentioned the fact that you've been a fan for so long and the community element of North End and almost protecting that spirit that the club has. So I suppose that would be of utmost importance for you as well. If you're seeking investors, making sure that they are the right people that understand the club.
I think that is so important. If you look around, you know, from a personal viewpoint, you look around the football landscape now, and we can all name certain clubs where they've had certain owners and it's all gone horribly wrong, and the disconnect between the ownership and the fans, and therefore the club, has become really significant. And so to me, ensuring that, you know, Preston North End so far have had amazing owners with Craig and and the Hemmings family and obviously Trevor Hemmings prior to that, who've put well over £100 million into the football club. Fantastic support, fantastic backing for the football club, and that's ongoing. And absolutely, I have no interest in Preston North End being owned by an organisation or individuals who have no real connection with it. Because this is about sort of custodianship. This is, we want to be here in 100 years' time. And
do you think it gets lost in modern football, that element of custodian? And, being a guardian or a safekeeper of a football club is more what owners should be, in my opinion. But do you think that gets lost in the noise of, we're seeing venture capitalist companies and stuff investing in football? But do you think that maybe sometimes doesn't get recognised enough, the fact that, it is about being a steward, really, if anything, of a community asset?
I think it does get lost. I think there's a whole host of different owners in it for different reasons, and for many, clearly they're in it for the right reasons of ensuring there is that custodian of the football club, and it moves through the years and it's passed through the years and is done correctly. And some people will always be in sport, business, whatever, to make a fast buck. And I've no interest in whoever owns Preston North End after Craig and the Hemmings family being able to make a fast buck on a football club when it's not about a fast buck. It's about making sure we're here for the long term.
Is there any timeline on this in terms of what you're looking for in investors? Is it within a year, within 2 years, or is it just about staying patient until those right people come along?
I think if I remember Craig's statement when Craig passed the reins over to myself, that he was looking initially at a 2-year time horizon. He cares, and the Hemmings family care passionately about the football club, and it's really important to them that the football club, should it to be sold, ends up in the hands of a responsible owner who's in it for the right reasons. And so that's a really clear brief that I have. There have been conversations that have run over the last few months, last few years, but the reality is none of those are really going anywhere at this moment in time. So what I've been in situ now, 2 months, and as far as I'm concerned, we're sort of starting that process afresh, looking at it from a very professional basis, working with Peter, working with the advisors, and the networks and the positions on that to see where we can get to. Because there are a lot of people who just ring up saying, I'm interested in buying a football club. Well, we can all do that, but
North End will always have great appeal, won't it, to the football world in terms of success on the pitch, and North End being so close to maybe getting into the Premier League, where financially it is a lot different, or maybe you're finding a bit more interest might happen now because of where North End are in the top half of the league rather than towards the bottom at this moment in time?
I think that's undoubtedly the case.
Yeah.
Because most owners want to be in the top league for sure, for many reasons around that point. Most of them have been very obvious. And being at the top end of the Championship is clearly helpful in that process. And I think we'd all share the view that at this moment in time we have a very good team at the moment, and
great to watch.
And they're great to watch, and I love it, and it's great to be at that end of the table playing good football with real resoluteness and game changers, and doing really well. So yes, it's undoubtedly better to be at this end of the table, for both investor and for our own fan aspirational reasons, and we'll see where that can take us.
Can I ask, because you've had success in business, you're a North End fan, how has your relationship been with the Hemmings family in terms of to get to know them, to be trusted in this sort of a role?
That's a great question. I've known the Hemmings family probably for the best part of 30 years. I actually went to work for Trevor Hemmings when I was in my late 20s. And Trevor was an amazing mentor to me, and I learned an awful lot from him. And, I think when you are a very successful individual like Trevor was, and he was an amazing individual, you're either trusted or you're not. And I've always liked to believe I'm a very straightforward, as I always like to refer to myself, particularly when I'm doing the rounds in London, I'm just the boy from Preston. And I think you deal with things very straightly. I think you deal with things very openly and honestly. You say when you think something, and you deal with people correctly. And I'd like to think that's what I stand for. And clearly that went down well with Trevor. I then went and ran 2 public companies for the best part of 20 years, travelling the world in sort of sport and gaming and technology, and had a brilliant time. Loved it, and we did pretty well. So that was great. And throughout that entire time, I kept in touch with Craig and the family and Trevor, who were investors in certain parts of it, and so we always kept in touch. Craig had often asked me for my view as a fan on the football club, and we spoke very openly. And then when he rang me in the summer and said, "Come on round in, let's have a chat," that's led to me being here now.
I'm also thinking, how far does it go back with the North End games with the Hemmings family? Was there sort of an early game you went to, and maybe with them as well?
Well, I generally went in the early days with my brothers. I grew up in a family where my dad would always talk about, standing on the Cop and watching Tom Finney and all those stories that we used to love and endure when we weren't seeing too much success. And that was great. Both of my brothers have been season ticket holders for as long as I can remember. Home and away, I suppose you go back to some of those early games. I suppose one of the earliest games I remember was when Bobby Charlton played Jackie Charlton as Preston Middlesbrough. I think Middlesbrough got promoted that day. That was probably in the, I'm guessing, 74, 75 time.
Brilliant.
All the way through to, I can remember John Thomas chipping the ball in against Stockport on the plastic pitch when we won 2-0 and the pitch got invaded, which was...
Be honest, did you go on the pitch or not?
I'm not sure I'm allowed to say, am I, in my current role?
I think you'll get away with it now, to be honest with you.
I think we were quite carried away. Yeah, I mean, so that was great. For going, back down those memory banks. I can remember being away at Exeter on a Tuesday night in February time, probably, when David Beckham was playing for us.
Brilliant. And
we won 1-0 and stood on that open terrace and got absolutely drenched with about 1,500 people in Exeter, which was a great, I don't think if you're a football fan you can understand that. It was a fantastic evening, getting totally drenched in it'd been the 4th division probably in those days.
Yeah.
But that was amazing.
It's all character building, isn't it? And like when you're a fan of a football club and you say to someone, "I've stood in the rain for 2 hours to watch my team." I think Preston won that night, so that's helpful.
Watching Beckham in a Preston shirt, not many North End fans got to do that. He wasn't here that long.
He was amazing. I can remember that night, and maybe some of this is rose-tinted glasses, and you remember things sometimes differently. But I seem to remember because he was a young kid, and he was 17 or 18 years old, and there wasn't a lot to it. He wasn't a very big guy, and I can remember him. He used to get hold of the ball on the right-hand side and be looking to pass the ball off, but the players weren't quite where he wanted them to be, and he would have to then pirouette and come back round and turn on himself. He was a shining light that day in the gloom of St James's Park.
Goodness me.
No, he was amazing, and I think Moisey played for us that night as well.
That was a great time, wasn't it? On Moyes, what he gave the football club, player, manager as well.
Oh, he was amazing. He was amazing. He was a real catalyst for change, and it was such a shame that in 2001 when we lost the playoff final, it was a real shame that we couldn't quite make that final jump and lost to Bolton, I think 3-0.
We couldn't talk about playoffs for years, but now we've won in them. It's okay.
Well, you talk about sad moments, difficult moments. I remember 2015 when we only had to get a result away at Colchester.
I was there. I couldn't believe
You were
it.
there?
I couldn't believe it.
And I couldn't believe it. And I can remember getting back in the car after the game, in the car park, and pressing the take me home button on the sat nav, and 200 odd miles back to Preston. And you just thought, because we'd lost the 9 previous playoffs, you just thought, oh God, we've blown it again. You know,
Colchester was
another
struggling as
season.
well. Yeah.
I can remember that me and my brother drove home, and I don't think we spoke to each other. It was like, oh God, here we go again. And then, what an amazing end to that season after Chesterfield, and then Swindon at Wembley.
Yeah, I mean, we've had Simon Grayson on the pod, and he's spoken about that particular campaign. We've had David Moyes on the podcast, Peter Ridsdale, and many people, males, haven't they, have sat where Ian sat or wherever we've interviewed them and said something very similar to what you said at the start, which was, want to see Preston in the Premier League. Would love to see Preston in the Premier League. It's been a long time since Preston were in the top flight of English football. It's quite pleasing to see that everyone from all these different generations of North End, whether that be players, managers, fans, everyone is aligned in the fact they want to see North End in the Premier League. And it would be refreshing, I think, for the neutral Premier League fans to see a club like North End in the top division, because it's been a long time, not since North End were there, but since a club like Preston have had the opportunity to compete in the Premier League.
I totally agree. You know, we've not been in the top league of English footballs since I've been alive, and that's a massive aspiration of mine and of all Preston fans, and that's what I'd love us to achieve. I'm hugely proud. You talk to the taxi drivers in London or the rest of it, and they always say, "Who do you support?" Thinking you're going to come out with a Man U or Liverpool or something like this, and you say, "Well, no, Preston North End." And invariably for a West Ham or a Millwall fan, the rest of it, they go, "Oh, a proper football club," and it's fantastic. I love it. I loved it when my daughter worked in London for a number of years, and her and I'd go off to watch Reading away on a Friday night or down to Millwall. That was an interesting experience. That made me laugh when we were at Millwall a few weeks ago, and I still, as someone who was on the terraces, I still find it amazing. I sit in like the best seat in the house when you come out, and it still makes me smile. I turned around to my other director and said, "Last time I was in Millwall, I was over there behind the goal in the away end with my daughter," and.
Are you tempted to go in the away end? Because is it the Birmingham owners? They make sure the cameras are on them when they go in the away end.
I will definitely go back in the away end for sure, and because I'm a fan and I love it. But I won't want the camera. I won't be doing it for the cameras. I'll be doing it because I want to be there, not because I want someone to see me being there. I'm probably with my collar and my cap on.
Disguise.
Yeah.
Tell us about your businesses that you were involved with. You mentioned over 20 years you were successfully involved in running a couple of businesses in the technology sector and in the leisure sector as well. So just tell us about what those businesses were and what you achieved.
Yeah, so if I just take the public company side of life, so 2 London Stock Exchange based businesses. So the first one, Arena Leisure, we went from being a tiny business. We bought a number of horse racing tracks so that we put on 28% of all horse racing in the UK. Maybe it was the joys of youth that we then decided that we wanted to buy the media rights to do for UK horse racing. So I knocked on the door of Sky and said, "Would you partner with us to buy the media rights for UK horse racing?" And they did, and Channel 4 then came on board as well. So we launched a TV channel around racing. We streamed racing around the world, which was fantastic.
So you created that idea back then?
Yeah, I mean,
brilliant.
It was amazing.
Yeah.
It was amazing, and we had a great team, and we had a great group of people who wanted to make a difference and do that. So that was fantastic. Took me around the world, all sorts of different race meetings and the like. But I was always, that racing was my business side of it. Football was my passion.
So you've got a good collection of suits and hats, then, is what you're saying, from all the horse
I
meets.
used to have to collect them. I can, but then so that was great fun. We grew that very significantly, and then I was then asked, actually by Trevor Hemmings, if I'd swap horses and go and take over a business called Sportec, which was a business that was having a really tough time, laden with debt, and it ran the football pools. And
that was massive, wasn't it?
It was absolutely massive, and it was. I loved it around the football pools, because I remember the football pools when I was a kid, and the football pools man used to come to our door, collect the collector, we'd give the coupon, we'd all pretend we knew how to do the spot the ball and try and win spot the ball, but the football pools was having a hard time. The National Lottery came in, it really hit the football pools, and it sort of lost its way a bit. So by dint of re-engaging with a number of football personalities and improving its technology, we sort of digitised it, made it relevant for today's world, and ended up selling it on as a consequence of fundamentally turning it around. And that was great for me, because on the pools panel we had Gordon Banks and Roger Hunt, World Cup winners, so I'd sit down and go out for dinner with them and talk, which was great. And then some of our ambassadors, we had of Kenny Dalglish and Alan Hansen and Les Ferdinand, and so for me it was amazing. And one of the greatest evenings I had in that front is when we relaunched the pools and so on. We were sat about 1 o'clock in the morning around the table with let's say a few glasses of water, but they were really a few glasses of red wine with a number of those characters. And Gordon Banks, who clearly died a few years ago, he's a wonderful man, using the wine glasses and the salt and pepper pot, proceeded to show the movement of all the players for his save from Pelé in 1970, sorry. And when you wish you'd recorded something or been able to do that, and it was just. I was just sort of sat there with all these stars, and Gordon's going through the movement of Jorginho and Pelé and coming out to cover him. And I'm thinking, I'm just the boy from Preston, and this is just amazing.
Some save that. Iconic.
It was amazing. So, and then within that business, we then decided we needed to venture out. So I bought a business in New York. And that business did the technology that, if you ever go horse racing and you place a bet with a tote, our technology powered the tote in the UK. We did a third of everything in the US. We did lots in Canada, lots in Asia. And then we moved that into taking it broadly into sport. So we were running the only legal offerings on some 60-odd franchise teams in North America. So I used to go around lots of the NFL teams and NBA and NHL teams. And that was great, because, combining the business with actually something you care passionately and are interested in, sport, I was very fortunate, very lucky.
So I suppose going to America and having involvement in sport, albeit not necessarily in a football club, will probably help you now with what you're doing at North End. All of those experiences you can lean on in what you're looking to achieve here at Deepdale.
Absolutely. And as a consequence, you know a number of owners of teams, a number of the key operators in those teams, the way they look at operational issues, the way they look at from their investment viewpoint. I remember once talking about the issues of salary caps, which was fascinating in relation to, I won't say who, but an owner of one of the major NHL teams in the US, or in North America, I should say. And it's just very interesting. So yes, you life's all about bringing together the various things you learn, whether it's socially, politically, business-wise, sport-wise, and the rest of it, and combine all those, and you hopefully it makes you a better person.
But also contacts. You must have some vast contacts around the world, significant ones that may become more interested because you're involved at Preston North End.
Absolutely, and equally, it's really nice now on a Saturday night, Sunday morning, getting texts from all around the world saying I'm now a Preston fan. Great result again. So yes, lots of contacts, and I want people to be Preston fans, and then ultimately for Preston North End and my brief, and for the brief from the Hemmings family, if we can secure some investment and or ownership, then that will be a good outcome.
Can I ask what sort of challenges, difficulties are around for you? Because as much as we're saying, okay, North End are going really well on the pitch, brilliant, great to see, it's the Championship and it's such a difficult league. But what are some of the challenges that you're having to cope with this new role?
I think the difference from being a fan to being the chairman, the game, I mean, I always thought I watched the game and understood from a fan's viewpoint what was going on, not necessarily from a professional viewpoint, but from a fan's viewpoint what was going on. And I was quite stressed about watching Preston. I can remember I actually sat on the terrace at Gillingham away when we lost the playoff, when I think Hassenthaler or Andy Hassenthaler scored in like the first minute. And
Lucas was in goal.
Was he?
We've asked him about that, yeah.
Oh, no, I remember I just sat thinking, God, we've come a long way again, and we all know the outcome that's happening now. And the stress of that. But actually watching it from the chairman's seat, and I still say that phrase with a smile on my face, watching it from the chairman's seat is unbelievably stressful, because you're so much more aware of the consequence of someone pulling up with an injury.
Yeah.
Of the consequence of that, the momentum, you know, in a way that you know way better than I, Neil, so I wouldn't even go there on that. But so much of sport's about momentum, isn't it? And you wouldn't, that togetherness, and I've always believed Preston will be successful by momentum, by the togetherness from every single fan, from the cleaner through to the chair, of all the players, everyone associated with the football club of Preston North End. If we all pull together, we have way more chance of achieving success than not. And so watching it now as the chair is, you know, you are feeling it, or I do feel it an awful lot more than I felt it before. And I was stressed before as a fan, and now I'm like super stressed, but you just got to deal with that.
What's your relationship with the players? Have you met the players? Will you meet the players?
I've met most of the players, for sure. I didn't want to be an invisible chairman. I've spent quite a bit of time with Paul, as you'd expect. But also, I'm not, or I like to think I believe I understand my role, in that I'm not going to be here to try and be the person who thinks he's one of the players, one of the team. That's not my job. You know, I want to be around. I want everyone to know I care. I care passionately about what we do. I'm interested in the players. I'm interested in Paul and Stuart and the rest of the team. But I'm not here to pick the team. I'm not here to get involved in that sort of stuff. I'm not here to go in and around the dressing room when people say, you know, do you go in the dressing room? So, no, that's not my role. That's for the players and the managers.
Yeah, I suppose in the same way.
And, you know, you know, if you put my fan hat on, you think, well, that'd be really good to do that. But that's not my, you know, I've run businesses around the world. I've had thousands of people who work for me. I'd like to think I understand the layers of management and not going into skip level management where it just causes trouble. So, you know, I just want to be personal. I want to be open. You know, here today at the training ground, you know, I like to stand on the touchline and just watch a bit of the training for a few minutes. Again, just to show I care. I am actually, well, one, I enjoy watching it, but secondly, I want everyone to know that I'm not some faceless chairman who doesn't care that
you're at the games.
That I'm at the games.
Yeah.
And always was at the games.
Yeah.
I think that's important as well, because the players, the training ground, the dressing room, that's their office, if you will. And in the same way, you probably wouldn't expect 5-10 players to come barging into your office without a knock. You probably feel the same about going into their space, I suppose.
If they did, you'd know there's something wrong. No, absolutely. So you've got to respect that and just be conscious of what your role is and what you're doing here. So, you know, I just want people to know I'm interested in care, and you know, we'll speak to all and everybody as a consequence. But I would do that whether it's at a football club or whether it's in business. I would always walk around the office or you know, the technology centre and go and talk to everybody, because I like everyone to know that the boss cares.
And in terms of changes in the short term, long term, what might we see? What might we expect? I know I've sort of seen it, and I don't know how relevant this is, looking at sort of the future of North End, the academy, the youth system. There's talk of maybe the club becoming Grade 2 rather than Grade 3 at the academy level, which would mean maybe an indoor facility being built at Springfields. That was something I always wanted, by the way, when I was there. I was like, just get an indoor. Why can't we get an indoor? But I don't know where the club are with that. Can you give us an update, maybe, please?
I think at the moment it's an aspiration. We have a board meeting next week, and there are a number of these sort of projects which are on the agenda, which will be discussed. What do I want? I would love the academy process to move forward, because one, it's good business, and having players coming through the process. But secondly, and I think importantly, again, that connection between the fans and the club always help when it's somebody local. And so at this moment in time, it's an aspiration, it's on the agenda, and we'll update more in the near term. But yeah, I'm very aware of it.
Brilliant.
Just want to bring it back to pre this role and your fandom, and you're not allowed to answer this question with Neil Mellor. But who was your favourite Preston North End player?
He wasn't, anyway.
when you were younger, or maybe some of your favourite players you've watched over the years at Deepdale?
Neil Mellor. No.
I'll pay you off.
I suppose if I go back in those early days, I thought the sort of John Thomas.
Yeah.
John Thomas was, I thought, amazing. I think probably in today's world, some of those challenges they used to put in on the goalkeeper that we all loved, maybe a bit different than today's ruling, but he was
a goal machine.
He was fantastic. Simon Davey, thought was always had real quality. I won't say the classic David Moyes and the rest of it, but he was obviously clearly massively important. Graham Alexander was just I thought was a great role model in everything he stood for, and his penalties were something that will live long in the memory.
Well, especially that last game where he scored at Deepdale, that was just a magical moment for him and for the fans.
I think that game was amazing, scoring with I think it was his last kick, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah, but also, if we go back to that great evening when we won against Birmingham in the playoff, and I think someone will correct the stats on it, but it was the first penalty in about the 80th minute when we had to score that Graham Alexander actually missed. I can remember him missing, and then in the penalty shootout, the bravery then to come straight back up and take, which was probably the opening kick, and whack it in was just, I think, set the whole scene for that win that evening. That was amazing. So I think I'm too old to have favourites now, aren't I? But if I'm going back in,
you're not allowed to have them now. But you,
if
definitely
I'm going back in time,
they
would be my the ones I'd pick out. I mean, we all like Brian Mooney just because he had amazing skill and amazing talent on. I think it was on the plastic pitch in those days, wasn't it? But I mean, loads and loads. But I would say they're probably the key ones.
And we spoke to Peter Ridsdale, and he said, since his involvement in the club, he can't look past the end of the 2014-15 season when North End are at Wembley and get promoted. You've already briefly mentioned it there, but what a day that was, getting promoted from League One, and the way that it happened after what transpired at Colchester with that long, rather destitute drive back to the northwest with your brother where you're not talking to each other. To round the season off in that fashion, that must be one of your fondest memories supporting the club as well.
I think yes. But equally, and I'm sure half the North End fans were in the same boat, when we were 3-0 up at half time.
We'll find a way to throw this away.
I can remember stood underneath the stand at half time thinking, I can't believe we're going to lose it from here. I cannot believe it's all going to be so bad at Wembley. And then when Jermaine Beckford got that fourth, even my miserable moment was saying, even we can't lose it from here. And then we saw, I was in Plymouth away with my son and my brother when we were 3-0 up with 30 minutes to play, and it wasn't for Woodman, we would have lost that last year and we'd have lost 4-3. So, I think inevitably as a football fan, you do fear the worst at all moments. But that was a tremendous day. Winning at Wembley is like everybody's dream, isn't it? But equally, when we got promoted, in the mid-90s, when we won 2-0 away at Hartlepool, that was a fantastic afternoon out. I seem to remember the sun was shining in Hartlepool that day. So it's not just the glamour, big, amazing days that we had at Wembley, which was fantastic, and will still be one of the best days of my life. But winning at Hartlepool to get promoted at Hartlepool was a big thing as well. I think we might have even won the title at Hartlepool. But so it's hopefully we're going to have days like that again.
So you speaking to us today, an opportunity for the fans to see you and hear from you, and they might see you walking around Deepdale, or they might see you outside the ground somewhere. Would you encourage fans to come up to you and have a conversation and have a chat and ask you questions and get to know you a little bit better? Because if it's talking about North End, then I'm sure it's something you're very happy to do.
Oh, I could bore anyone talking about North End, but for sure, I want to be visible. I want to be around, and more than happy to have a conversation with all and everybody, in the way that you talk. We spoke to all and everybody as we've trailed and we've gone around the grounds in the last 50 or so years, as a fan, talking to all those around. So I would welcome that. I'm a big believer, as I said earlier, in the whole ethos of the team spirit and the togetherness, and I'd love to see Deepdale full more often. I'd love to see the town or the city coming together and really pushing us towards promotion. Deepdale, when it's rocking like it was in the last 20 minutes against Coventry, is a great place to be. And I'd love that to come together, because the benefit for Preston as a city, in the event we are successful in getting the Premier League, is enormous. The position on the map, the position on the world map, the number of people who will be coming into Preston as a consequence, the money that will be coming into the city, is a really important factor. So, I'd love the fans, the businesses, the council, everybody to come together to really, push us over that winning line, because, through the backing of the Hemmings family, Paul's, selection and positioning of the squad, we've got ourselves in a really good place.
I think maybe one of the questions which might be asked if you were pulled up outside the ground, January, transfer window, it's open, North End in a great position. What are your dealings with the budget, the transfer side of things for the transfer window, like January, for example?
The funding, the club has already invested heavily this year. I think you'll have seen from Craig's statement a couple of months ago, we've spent more on players' wages this year, on fees. So we've assembled the best squad and the most financially valuable squad that has been on the books of Preston North End. And that's got us to a great place. Clearly, we all want to kick on. But obviously, there's a finite use of resources at the moment, and we are, as you would expect, I have daily discussions with Craig. The money, has to be found from the Hemmings family, because it's nowhere else to be found unless we find it from other sources that in terms of investment sources. And Craig and the family have already put in a huge amount of money this year. So we've got a full squad already, 25 players. To be able to change that, we need, there's going to have to be some going out as well as coming in on that process. It's a very current debate, because we all want success at the end of this year, and with the investment that's gone in today, and with the work that Paul has done with his team, we've got ourselves in a good place. So we want to push on. And let's say there are daily discussions about how we do that. without being specific, Neil, but we all want the same thing.
Well, you've watched North End for many years. I'm probably as excited as I have been since leaving the club. Now I was part of the last North End team to get into the Championship playoffs, and it's taken too long for this football club to be back in that position. And there's a long way to go. We know that, and the Championship is a league which can change very quickly. But it's nice to come back to Deepdale for me, which sometimes I do with the work I do in the media, and there's a real buzz and a real excitement. And it's felt like it's been missing for a number of years. So for you to be around the football club at this moment, you can sense that excitement, and who knows what might happen.
Absolutely, and you know, I've sensed the disappointment and frustration of previous years. You know, I mean, I've been there, I've heard it all around me, I've felt some of it myself, and that buzz is fantastic at the minute. You know, here at the training ground, there is a buzz. You know, we've gone to places, and I'm going to get into territory, and I'd rather have your view than my view, because I view it as from my viewpoint, but you've got the professional angle in it. You know, away at teams like Sheffield Wednesday, I think would have struggled to win in previous years. Away at Millwall, would have struggled to come away with a draw that we did. And even at Oxford, we saw that through. And I think that's absolute testament to the quality and the buzz of the makeup of the team now, and the attitude and the resilience and the you know, those who can change a game, the game changers that we have. So I want us to build on that, because momentum, you know, is there to be built on, and you know, hopefully we can help support Paul through the January window, and you know, the city as a whole, businesses, the council, the fans, bring along your mates, bring along everybody. Let's really try and make a difference and do something special for this city.
Well, Ian, thanks for joining us on PNE Pod today. It's been really interesting to hear how excited you are about the role you've got and how North End can evolve moving forward. So just to round us off, if you did have one message for the supporters at the end of the show, just maybe as they get to know you through the last 40 minutes or so, what would you say to them?
I would just sum it up by saying, you know, we all have the same aspiration here. I'm not the remote suit looking after the football club. You know, I care as passionately. My family care. My brothers, my dad are all lifelong fans. We all want the same. The Hemmings family have been amazing, and they want the same success for the city and for the football club. And you know, I'm here as one of their own from a fan viewpoint, from a business viewpoint, from understanding financials, and if I can help add a little bit that helps us achieve something that we've all dreamed of, then I'll be a happy man.
Brilliant.
Thank you.
Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Great to chat. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Neil Mellor scored. Preston take the lead. And that's exactly what it means to Neil Mellor to score in the West Lancashire derby.